One of three things have to be going on right now with regards to USC's search for its next defensive coordinator. I'll tell you what they are. And a couple of position needs have been filled through the transfer portal. I'll tell you what those are. That's coming up next on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone, and welcome to Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your number one sports podcast network. So whether you're watching this show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, this show is always going to be free. This show is always going to appreciate your support. Everyone thought Pete Kwiatkowski was the defensive coordinator in waiting once the Alamo Bowl was over. However, here we are, a week later, just under a week, and the Trojan fans, I'm still wondering who's going to be in charge of that side of the ball. Yep, but it's one thing when you miss out on PK, a guy who's literally just a gift waiting outside your front door, constantly has a top 25 defense in the country, top 3 defense in the SEC the last couple of years. I don't know. When you miss out on that and you get stuffed in the locker because Stanford ends up being the destination, it's a little awkward. The question is why? What caused him to walk away? Or did USC walk away? Someone floated the name, if you want to go back to the NFL, someone floated the name Al Golden. He's got that previous relationship with Chad Bowden at Notre Dame. Doesn't look like that's happening. Cincinnati Bengals, they announced they're bringing their coaching staff back, which I don't know if that was USC's contingency plan, but that one's no longer on the books. And we know in-house, Doug Belk, Eric Henderson, they have their names in the hopper as well. So I think one of 3 things is going on right now. One, right? And this is probably more of a cynical take, but if USC is the Mecca and there's a long line of people waiting to come coach, I'm using Coach Riley's words. These aren't. I'm not being sarcastic. These are Coach Riley's words. I'm thinking, if that's the case, there can only be a few things going on that are keeping USC from inking their next defensive coordinator. I apologize. I got a really bad cold, so my voice is going in and out. I got stuff draining, so I apologize. Bear with me here. We'll get through this together. First thing I think is going on, the checkbooks. I think they're under review. We know USC talked up a huge NIL game with the high school recruits with the 2026 recruiting cycle. Brought in the number 1 class. But hiring an elite defensive coordinator means you got to have guaranteed money, right? You want to make sure that you have a big enough salary pool for the assistant coaches, the guys who are going to be under USC's next defensive coordinator. Plus, you got buyouts, staff demands, all that kind of stuff. Staff demands sounds like it's not a big deal, but it actually is. DCs, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, they want to work with guys that have their same vision, same philosophy. Whether or not that works, they have the same vision as Coach Riley, I don't know. I'm just saying, it just seems like this could be a possibility here. You got some boosters, and I'm not really breaking news here, but I'm going to kind of leak this out as it comes. I've been hearing from multiple sources, various sources, that some boosters they're starting to ask some questions. Instead of writing the checks, especially after watching USC's defense get pushed around in 2025, and then watching Danton Lynn kind of walk out the door, they're like, what's going on here? Before I sign this check, talk to me. Second thing that could be going on. Coach Riley's still trying to find a yes man with a resume. That's probably the best way of putting it. In other words, someone who's not going to rock the boat. But Coach Riley can lean into and say, hey, look at this guy's defensive coordinator resume. Again, Just kind of throwing that out there. USC doesn't just need a defensive coordinator. Okay. It needs one who has experience, can fix the defense. And, if you're looking at it, maybe something else Coach Riley's looking for is someone who's not going to challenge his offense first worldview. In other words, it's going to complement USC's offense just enough. And again, somebody who's not going to demand, more say in the roster or full autonomy on that side of the ball. Now, from the cynical point of view, again, I think this delay, it kind of suggests, maybe Coach Riley's looking more for, and I'm using the bigger quotes, more of a comfort fit, not necessarily, someone who's going to come in and rock the boat, disrupt everything, and be effective. Just kind of throwing it out there. Here's a third thing that could be going on. Maybe he just waits it out long enough. And he's saying, you know what? I wanted to be thorough. And now, after taking a week or maybe longer, who knows, he can say, hey, you know what? I got Doug Belk here. I got Coach Henderson here. I'm going to keep all the players happy. Okay. You make those guys co-defensive coordinators. I want to submit, for everybody in the back of the room, I want to say this loud and clear, full-throated. Ready? This has nothing to do with whether or not Coach Henney is ready to be a defensive coordinator, or the fact that Doug Belk already has defensive coordinator experience. My next point has nothing to do with that. Where I'm coming from, if I'm Coach Riley, I can't gamble on another hunch. Remember, he did that with Alex Grinch. That set this program back in its rebuild process. His next hire has to be the right one. It's going to be his third bite at the apple when it comes to defensive coordinator. Brought over Alex Grinch on the airplane with him, kept him around 1 year too long. You transitioned to Dan Lynn. That worked out well for the first year. It looked like, okay, we got our guy. Defense is trending in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, 2025, and they didn't go backwards. They just kind of flatlined. I said this before. They didn't take that next step. So if Coach Riley messes up this next hire, people are going to start to question his ability to assemble a staff. I guess we can look at it this way, okay? If USC were desperate, the job would already be filled. They're not. Although I think the delay suggests some money hesitations. Again, I don't know for sure. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves, trying to figure it out. But if it's not money hesitations or control concerns, or management optics, what is the master plan? It's, again, everybody knew Dan Lynn was leaving. They knew during bowl prep. Everyone was just waiting for January 1st for that buyout to be cut in half. Look, in college football, in sports, when something obvious isn't happening, it's usually because someone, is uncomfortable with the consequences. Whether that's Coach Riley, Jen Cohen, athletic director, Chad Bowden, to a lesser extent, a general manager. I don't think he has a big say in assembling the staff. He's more for roster personnel, players, retention, that kind of stuff. Right now, USC looks comfortable waiting. I can only assume that because I know myself. I know the feedback I'm getting from fans. Not so comfortable. They like to get this thing figured out. I mean, They're signing players out of the transfer portal, so apparently that's not going to be a major issue. Hopefully, whatever players they bring in on the defensive side of the ball, they fit whoever the new coordinator scheme. And again, if it's going to be Belk and Henny, okay, there's your continuity. You know what the scheme's going to be, more or less. There might be some tweaks here and there. I guess we'll find out together. Hopefully soon. I mentioned USC is bringing in players through the transfer portal. I'm going to tell you, bring you up to speed there. They brought in a couple more. So they found a cornerback. Now they've got a wide receiver. They got a linebacker. Is that it? Is that pretty much the end of it? I'll let you know what's going on in the next segment. And then in the third segment, stick around. USC men's hoops. They traveled to the state of Michigan. Out. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming at times. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that just keep piling up, and then you're trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down all those different hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in. Yeah, it's the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I love how it tracks all of my subscriptions, and it lets me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps, maybe 2, 3. No more hunting them down. Customer service numbers, you don't need to worry about that. Rocket Money takes care of it for you. In fact, it even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments into one single dashboard. You're going to get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you again for making Locked On USC your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I got a quick message for my everydayers who love to listen to Locked On USC on their favorite podcast platform. They don't watch on YouTube. They like to listen. Look, since you already live USC all day, every day, here's a chance for you to kind of take it up a level. Go ad-free. You can join the Everydayers Club today, and you're going to get Locked On USC with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, plus more. And you can do it all for $5 a month or $50 a year. See the link in the show description page for more information. Okay, let's get everybody up to speed. On yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, which if you have not subscribed yet, click that red subscribe button. It's free. Smash that thumbs up. I see everybody. You're loving the shows. Let everybody else know. Smash that thumb. It helps the algorithm. Don't forget to click that bell notification so you don't miss any episodes. So everyone, want to get you up to speed. MVP3, myself, we told you about Jontez Williams, the cornerback from Iowa State. He is now a Trojan. It's a solid transfer portal addition, and it's at a position of need. Cornerback. Okay. USC needed a veteran with experience. Williams checks that box. He's physical. He supports the run. But here's the other thing. He plays cornerback. He also has good ball hawking skills. He turns. He looks for the ball. He trusts where he trusts that he's in position. He's got confidence. You can really see it in his play. The only concern, if there is a concern, and with today's medical marvels, I don't think your concern is probably like this. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding my thumb and forefinger almost together, so there's like no space. You hope that he can return to his 2024 form after suffering an ACL injury in 2025. So he will be a part of the rotation. Him, along with Marcellus Williams, Chasen Johnson, those are your 3 cornerbacks with playing experience. Now you got 3 guys, you got some depth, you can get the rotation going, and it helps those younger guys get up to speed where you're not feeling like you're pressed to play them right away. If they're good enough, put them in. Absolutely. Here's another player. So now everybody, you're up to speed with Jontez Williams. USC added a wide receiver with experience, which again was another need. Box checked. Was it one of the top 2 wide receivers in the transfer portal? No. Nick Marsh, guess what? He's going to Indiana. And Cam Coleman, he was scheduled to take a visit to USC. He no longer is scheduled to take a visit to USC. And if we're being honest with each other, he was never leaving the state of Texas. He was either going to end up at Texas Tech or Texas A&M. And right now, the way Texas Tech is throwing around money, that's where he's going. Just putting it out there. I guess he could end up at A&M. But if I'm a betting man, Cody Campbell, the big billionaire oil booster, Lincoln Riley's good friend from Texas Tech, that's where he's going. So with those 2 guys pretty much not available, and Cam Coleman made his decision after USC decided they're going to go with North Carolina State wide receiver. His name is Terrell Anderson. So Cam Coleman, his price tag was probably going to be too much anyways. I don't know how much USC is paying for Terrell, but probably a nice little piggy bank. Again, I don't know the number, and it doesn't matter. This is what matters. He's coming in with experience. He just finished up his sophomore season at North Carolina State. He's 6'2", 192 pounds. Coming out of high school, he was a unanimous 4-star recruit. In fact, he was considered the nation's number 97 overall prospect and the number 19 wide receiver prospect in the 2024 recruiting cycle. He's from North Carolina. As I mentioned, he just completed his sophomore season. He led North Carolina State in receiving. He had 629 yards, number 2 on the team with receptions, 39. He also had 5 touchdowns. And if you looking for somebody to return punts, he's got that in his bag. 6 punts, 27 yards. I'd say the vast majority of his snaps, he took them lining up on the outside, but he can also line up in the slot. He's got 68 snaps inside, so he can do that too. And if you're going to play wide receiver in Coach Riley's system, the more versatile you are, the more time you're going to be on the field, bottom line. So he led North Carolina State receivers in total yards after the catch. If you like Mekhi Lemon, you're going to like this, right? He had 234 yards after the catch. And he also, in missed tackles, he forced the other team to miss him 9 times. So he's got a little bit of wiggle to him as well. He's tough. He's physical. He's got some wiggle. He also has some speed that you might want to be aware of. I guess during off-season workouts, he ran a 4.49 40, right? Means he can run by people. Apparently he can do it all. Now, again, I was throwing it out there. I would love for USC just to go all in. If you're going to do it with the high school recruits, go get the top guys at their position. Again, you weren't going to be going after a lot of guys. We're talking like 5 or 6, period. Give them the money. Do what Texas Tech did last year. Go get the best guys and elevate your team. I'm not down on Terrell. I'm just trying to point out Texas Tech figured it out. They got to the playoffs before Lincoln Riley and USC. Yeah, Texas Tech. Anyways, not going to belabor that point. By the way, right now, when you are done making Locked on USC your first listen every day, make sure you're checking out wearesc.com. 50% off for an entire year, and you're going to get an annual subscription to The Athletic. So again, when you're done with Locked on USC, go check it out, because what I'm about to read to you next is some of the information you get with your premium subscription to wearesc.com. So Eric McKinney, the publisher at WeRSC, he got in touch with the On3 sister site called the Wolfpacker, and he wanted to get some feedback on what Terrell brings to the table. According to Noah Fleischman, who covers the North Carolina State Wolfpack, he said this about Terrell. He's a dynamic receiver, in my opinion. And in fact, in my opinion, North Carolina State underutilized him in 2025. He could do a lot of things well on the field, whether it's being an asset in the quick screen game with his speed or his ability to beat defensive backs one-on-one downfield as a vertical threat. He had a season-long catch which went for 75-yard for a 75-yard touchdown, and it happened on the third play of the game at Duke. It was a screen pass that got blocked really well, and all of a sudden, the dude's just streaking down the sideline for a touchdown. He caught a career-best 39 passes for 629 yards, 5 scores. However, the Wolfpack's offense was more about moving the ball around the field, which led to fewer targets than some anticipated for Anderson. The former number 9 wideout in the class of 2024 has the capability of becoming a wide receiver 1 for any program with his potential. USC thought they were bringing someone in like that with Zacharias Williams in last year's transfer portal. Maybe that still comes to fruition. Now they've added another one. Again, his name is Terrell Anderson, North Carolina State. He has at least 2 more years of eligibility. The other position of need that USC went out and got, linebacker. So far, they got 1. They went up to the Washington Huskies transfer portal. They found Devin Bryant. So he's a local young man, went to St. John Bosco. He then went to out of high school, he went to the Huskies program. Last year, I guess he had what's considered a breakout season. And he actually started the majority of the games for the Huskies. He had the 5th most snaps among defensive players, and he was first among linebackers, and he finished the season with 62 tackles and 2 passes defended. Here's the thing. He's considered a run stuffer. Good. That's exactly what USC needs. And I'm glad Devin Bryant's going to be part of the program. Again, going back to what I think USC should be doing, getting the best possible candidate or candidates that are available out there. There was another guy, from local California kid, Ulu Abe. He was playing up at Cal. Apparently, his price tag was too much for USC. And there was a couple others as well that USC passed on. I think ones that ended up going to Nebraska. Is it Chambliss or is it Owen Strong? Again, I apologize. There's a couple other bigger bodied linebackers that are considered run stuffers, like Devin Bryant, who, for whatever reason, USC just, I don't know, maybe they didn't feel it, wasn't part of the vibes, whatever. Maybe the price tag was too high. Uluabe from Cal, though, yeah, that dude, really would have liked to see him on this roster in 2026. Not going to happen, though, apparently. Maybe it does. I don't know. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, cornerback, box checked. Veteran with experience. Wide receiver with experience, box checked. Run-stuffing linebacker, box checked. Are they done? Probably not. I think there's a couple more spots. I'm hoping another linebacker. And I think they need to go get an impact defensive edge guy. We'll see if that happens. A couple of former Trojans, bring you up to speed there. Micah Benuelos and Makai Sena. They're going back to the guy who recruited him, Josh Henson. Purdue, both of them. Good luck. I hope everything works out for you guys. I do know that Micah also was getting some attention from Oklahoma. Just putting it out there. So I wish these guys good luck. Just have a great career. Stay injury-free. Make it happen. And hopefully USC doesn't have to play those guys ever again. Because really, you don't want to beat 2 guys that were on your team before. I don't know, maybe you do. All right, we got one more segment to go. We're going to talk about men's hoops for a few minutes. They visited the state of Michigan. They visited the Michigan Wolverines, who are the number 2 team in the country. They're undefeated. And then after that, they had to go do a follow-up with Michigan State, the number 12 team in the country. All right, I'll tell you what happened. That's coming up next. USC had already suffered one belt to ass game when they played the Michigan Wolverines earlier. They lost by 30. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. It was humbling. They were taken behind the woodshed and again, just had their butts spanked. Nothing to write home about. Then they had a few days off. Their next test in East Lansing against the Michigan State. Yeah, Sparty. It was kind of cool. Sparty was wearing their black uniforms with their Sparty logo head. USC was wearing their gold unis with the Cardinal Trojan logo head. That was kind of a cool contrast. USC took a 5-0 lead in this game. Yeah, they started the game with a 5-0 lead. And it was all over after that. All over. But not in a good way. After that, Sparty took USC behind the woodshed and spanked them. I mean, put belt to butt. Final score, yeah. Well, let me put it this way. So, as I told you, USC took a 5-0 lead. After they took that 5-0 lead, Michigan State outscored them 80-46. Final score, 80-51. Ouch. Yeah, you could not. Coach Musk could not get those guys on the bus fast enough, get them to the airport to fly to Minnesota, because that's their next game to end the road trip. Yes. Look, Michigan, they're a really good team this year, but USC has to have a better showing than that. And yes, Michigan State was coming off a loss on the road to Nebraska, the number 10 team in the country, who's won 19 games in a row, the longest winning streak in the country. With that being said, USC has to be able to show they can compete on the road, not look like they're overwhelmed. And I get it, they're missing players, but I've never seen a team that misses so many layups. And not just layups, everything. They could not throw a... If Lake Michigan was right behind them, they could not throw the ball into the lake. They couldn't. That's how bad their shooting was against Michigan State. And the scoring, it just never happened. With 9.5 minutes to play in the first half, Michigan State led 13-9. And it didn't get any better. By the time there was 6.5 minutes on the clock in the first half, something clicked for Michigan State. All of a sudden, they raced out. The lead ballooned to 24-11. Muss is calling a timeout because their big man is getting hot from behind, from deep. Jackson Kohler. Yeah. So all of a sudden, USC's down 27-11. Coach Muss is like, timeout. Let's regroup. It never happened. They got nothing out of Chad Baker-Mazara in the state of Michigan. I'm not sure why it was Coach Muss's decision. However, he did not start the game. First time all year he did not start. He had just 3 points in the first half. He played a total of 4 minutes in the second half when he started the second half. 18 minutes total for the game, 4 points. Something's going on. I'm not sure what it is. And then my man, Ezra Asar, dude was just getting abused while he tried to split double teams in the paint. He's a physical guy, but Michigan State is a physical team. They look for contact, and they were looking for Ezra. Just wasn't able to get started. He had his typical second half production, but nothing like, we've seen from him earlier in the year. So at halftime, USC trailed 33-17. Look, Michigan State's defense, it's good. It's always good. But it wasn't that good. USC in the second half, slightly better. They scored many more points, but they were just never in the game at all after the first 5 minutes of the game. I mean, they trailed 64-40 with 9 minutes to play. I mean, they were stinky poo from behind the arc. Ready for these stats? 3 of 17 for the game. Michigan State wasn't that much better, 7 for 22. But USC shot 33% from the field. Michigan State, 50% from the field. Yeah. What's another stat that really stands out here that you might want to hear? Maybe you don't want to hear. Total rebounding, it wasn't as bad as it looked. Michigan State won on the boards 39-30. Offensive rebounds, they had 10. USC had 8. Bench points, 21-9 in favor of Sparty. Yeah, that one kind of sticks out. Turnovers, yep. USC 17 against 10 assists. Will not get it done on the road. Period. End of story. Look, let's just be honest here. They were stinky poo in the state of Michigan, not just from deep. They couldn't do anything right at all. And now they get to finish up their road trip in the state of Minnesota. That's actually a bucket list. I wish I was there. I want to go see a game in the barn, but it's just not in the budget for me this year. So we'll see what happens eventually, maybe somewhere down the line. They need a win on the road. They need to get a win at Minnesota just to kind of get a little bit of a feel-good coming back home. But Coach Muss, he needs more scorers because when CBM, Chad Baker-Mazara, when he's not in the game, both physically and mentally, USC is not going to have a chance to win, and especially against a team like Michigan State. All right. So there's your basketball report. USC now, I think they have fallen to 12-3. They're still looking for that 13th win. They are no longer in the top 25. We knew that was going to happen when they started this road trip. But, hey, you never know. We'll see what happens. Long season to go. And it looks like Elijah Arenas will be available next week. So, something to look forward to. All right. Something else to look forward to. Another episode of Locked on USC. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully feeling better. And so until then, everyone, you know what to do.